because I want you guys to hear some of her advice on how to find employment in accounting in Tasmania. Many of you have come to me and say it's very hard, it's challenging. So I guess why shouldn't I go for the top person of the food chain to give you the advice? And here we are today. So thank you for doing this, Gina.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leo, for the opportunity to come and have a chat.
Yes. So Gina, before we start, can you talk a bit about maybe introduce yourself to my students?
For sure, yeah. As Leo's mentioned, my role is General Manager of CPA here in Tasmania. For those who may not necessarily be familiar with the accounting designations in Australia, CPA Australia is one of two major professional bodies representing accountants.
Yep.
And CPA stands for Certified Practicing Accountants. Just to clarify that, because sometimes there's a little bit of unsurety around that. So globally, we have around 155,000, 160,000 members. And here in Tasmania, we also have quite a significant presence with around 1,500 members.
Okay, yep.
From all areas of the accounting profession that you can imagine and across all areas of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a very privileged position to be able to work with 1,500 very talented accountants in every type of business, every type of government entity that you can imagine.
Yep.
And the role encompasses the provision of professional development, because it's an ongoing obligation as an accountant to maintain your professional competency. We run around about 50 to 60 events for our members across the course of the year in normal times. We also manage the CPA program, which is our postgraduate program that an associate member completes before they advance to becoming a full CPA.
Okay. Yeah.
So to become a CPA, it's not a matter of handing your money over and saying, I want to be part of a professional body.
Yeah.
There is a very robust postgraduate program to work through. So we also manage that.
And is it so they have to study and do the exam?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's almost an extension of your university studies. You know, just when you think you've got your degree and you can sit back and say, well, that's it.
Yeah.
No.
So just when you think university is enough.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No.
Great. Yeah.
So that, I guess, in a nutshell, is what CPA is and the role here in Tasmania.
Yep, great. And so that means if anyone who's watching this and they are considering doing CPA, they can contact you. They can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And how often there is an intake, or how does it usually work?
We run 2 semesters, very similar to the university structure. Having said that, there is quite a long lead-in time into each semester that enables you to gain some additional study time at the front end of when the semester formally begins. But yes, essentially 2 semesters of 10 weeks with exams at the conclusion of each of those 10 weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's exciting. Exams. I love exams.
Yes. Oh, yes, doesn't everybody? And our exams are coming up in October. So, you know, we've just done a reach out with a number of our associate members to make sure that they're on track, that they're doing their study, they're doing their practice exams, and they're ready for that final hit out.
Okay. Yeah. That's great information there, Gina. Now, another question I would like to ask you is, as we discussed before the podcast, is a lot of international students. They come from interstate. They're from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and when they came here, they have done already got the accounting degree with them.
Yes.
But they have a very hard time finding jobs. Yes. So, what do you think are some of the main reasons for that? Like, why is it so hard to find accounting jobs here in Tasmania?
It seems to be par of the course, unfortunately, that the Tasmanian environment for graduate roles is highly competitive. It has been for many, many years. And I think perhaps in the current climate, where businesses are very cognizant of costs and being highly efficient within their workforce, then the propensity to take on new graduates is not as strong as it has been previously. we were talking earlier, I guess, about that concept of I've got my degree, that's my ticket to my graduate role. Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, the degree only gets you across the line. It just gets you to first base, really, because an employer will expect that's taken as said.
Yes.
Anybody applying for an accounting graduate role has a degree.
It's a given.
It's a given.
Yeah.
It is what you build around your degree then that makes the difference. And one of the contributing factors as to why graduates, regardless of whether they're domestic or international students coming into the state, is that they don't appreciate that an employer is looking for the whole person, not just somebody who performs well academically. So you can have the best results in your class. However, if you don't have that holistic skill set and capability base, then the employer will potentially look at two candidates, both with the same results, effectively. One, however, who has well-developed communication skills, is personable, is authentic, presents well, where the employer can look at that person and say, I can see you in my business, in my team. So it's really thinking about what are you presenting as a package, if you like, to a future employer. And it's not just being smart.
It's not all about the GPA, how much GPA you have.
No, not at all. Having said that, if you're going for, say, a graduate role in public practice, you would hope that your tax subjects are pretty strong. If you're applying for a role in audit, you want your audit subjects to be fairly strong. I'm not negating the importance of strong academic results, but it really is about developing that whole person and that whole package and what you can offer a future employer.
Because what you said makes so much sense, because a lot of my students, they are coming from Asia background, and in our culture, it's a lot about being introvert. It's a lot about to keep it to ourselves, so and it's not that easy to switch it as much as they are aware of it. But I always tell them that you have to do some changes, because this is reality and there will be no compromise for that.
That's absolutely right. And whilst I'm not suggesting that you need to go out being overly extrovert with bells and whistles on, you certainly need to be able to present yourself as a value proposition to a future employer. And I have so many employers who will say to me, as long as you have a certain degree of cognitive capacity and that your grades are reasonable, I can then teach you all the technical components of the job. However, if you come to me and I can't see how I can put you in front of a client to engage with a client, or I'm not sure that you have the capacity to be able to work well in a team. These are the sorts of things that we struggle in being able to teach, I think, grads those types of skills. We can teach the technical skills.
Yes, that's so right. Because I think when I was in uni, a lot of the assignment that we did was a lot of these individual assignment. There is group work, but very less. So we tend to learn to do things on our own. But obviously, like you said, then in workplace, you got to learn to work as a team.
Absolutely, because the nature of accounting is changing, as we know. A lot of those traditional entry-level graduate roles that tended to be more back of house, if you like, where you could work individually. You could head down, you could just hammer out the numbers, or you could punch in the data. Those days are really disappearing. And so it's that, again, holistic skill set that you bring to the business that enables an employer to put you in front of a client, to work cohesively within the team environment, to be able to take a set of numbers and explain the story behind the numbers, rather than just being purely fixated on those figures alone.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because I talk with a lot of accountants. They tell me this, that actually when you make a mistake in accounting, you can actually fix it. If they see, if you find out the problem, you can actually fix it. But so that's why they look more like the technical skills is important, but they also look at the like you said, the holistic, the whole approach,
Yes.
the whole package.
The whole package, that's right. And I absolutely appreciate that fundamental difference of culture and of behaviour.
Yes.
It is almost the reverse of what a lot of students are quite accustomed to. So, again, certainly speaking to a lot of students coming through, there is a reticence, for example, to ask questions. So that they are very sure about what they're doing. If a mistake is made, you're right, it can generally be fixed, provided it's identified right at the beginning. So again, there's a reticence to say, I think I've made a mistake on this, because it's a very different cultural position.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Because in my culture, whenever I ask the questions, it's not welcome.
Yes.
So because I don't understand why, but only when I come overseas and I realize that you don't have to do that. If you don't understand, you say you don't understand. If you made a mistake, just say you made a mistake. But in my culture, and I'm talking about Asia in general, it's very hard to understand why they make it like that. But
so how we overcome some of those shifts in the way in which we act and behave in the workplace are absolutely some of those challenges that really are hurdles for a lot of our international students going into graduate roles.
For sure. And I think last time when we spoke about, you told me there are certain characteristics that you see in those who landed a job.
Yes.
Can you, let's say, list some maybe top 3 characters?
Right. Definitely there are some key qualities that travel through those students who are successful in securing graduate roles. And I would have to say that probably one of the top 3 would be resilience. It's the capacity to keep pushing, to maintain your motivation, and even when there has been multiple times where you've not made it through to interview, or you've not been shortlisted, or you've got right to the end and then I'm sorry, you're not successful. Almost, but it's the resilience to be able to pick up and continue on, and to maintain your identity and your self-worth through that. Those with resilience will persevere, but it's a very tough road. So it does take that quality. A second would be this understanding that it's more than your academic results that will actually ensure that you're successful.
Sure.
So developing that full suite of what we call our employability skills. And one of those, as we've been chatting, is really about developing connections and developing relationships. Tasmania is all about the personal relationships that you develop. And whilst generally speaking, it is about a very structured approach to how you would secure a role, sometimes you can be just in the right place at the right time, speaking to the right person, and an opening will emerge. So the networking, your relationships, and I think that's another potential difference, let's suggest, in between, I guess, that Australian culture and that which might be predominantly an Asian cultural characteristic, is that when you're going into a networking scenario, or when you're looking to develop relationships, the mindset needs to be, what can I contribute to this relationship, as opposed to what can I take out of the relationship.
That's so true.
So that's quite a shift in mindset. And if you do adopt that mindset, though, then it does open doors. It really does open doors. So it's resilience, it's the relationships, and building the whole of person capability set. Yeah.
Because the networking thing that you say is I think it's like we both agree is a challenge for a lot of international students.
It is.
I think because one of the reasons for me to say that is because I heard a lot from them. They told me that when they want to talk to people, they first of all they don't know what to talk about.
Of course.
They don't know where to start the conversation. They don't know how to set a common ground, so this is what turned them off, and this is what's stopping them. So would you like maybe tell them a bit about maybe one or two sentences they can start the conversation going?
Yeah. So what do we all like to talk about? What's our favorite topic?
I think it's ourselves.
Absolutely. Once you get somebody started, then off they go, generally speaking. So the secret is to, as I said, come into that conversation or into that relationship in terms of what can I give to the relationship.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's about you, not about me. So if I'm meeting you for the first time, I'm going to open with a question that allows you to then feel really comfortable in your own space, because I might say, hi, Leo, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Love to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow, great business you've got going. Tell me about the impacts of COVID and how that's affecting your business. And so immediately you feel very comfortable with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's all about you.
Yes.
Yeah, and all I really need to do is listen, think about the sorts of questions that I'll continue to pose to you, lots of open questions. And then you would hope at a point in time that you'll flip that and then you'll say, oh, well, tell me about you. And then it's my turn. And off we go. And so you get a very natural conversation progressing from there. But it's very much about opening the door for the individual to feel really comfortable talking to you. Yeah.
And you say the point about giving. So you try to give to the employer first before you take. So for someone who is new and who hardly have any experience, what certain things that you think they can give to the employer first, so that they can get the conversation or they can get the relationship going?
Okay. I think it really is about developing your contacts and your exposure to the community. So taking the opportunity to break out of your own comfort group and be prepared to meet those new people and to open up the conversation. It's only when you really start to open up the conversation that you will then understand what you can contribute to the employer or the person you're speaking to.
Yes.
So we might have a conversation, and in that you talk about, you love, eating out, and your favourite cuisine style is, Mexican, let's say.
Exactly.
And then I'm going to say, oh, gee, fabulous. I'm a big fan of Mexican food as well. Have you tried restaurant X? No, I haven't. Oh, look, I really recommend it. They're just sensational. They do the best X, Y, Z. So you are giving, even in that very small example.
Oh, okay.
You are providing some value, into that conversation.
Yeah.
So when you're speaking with a potential employer, listen very carefully to the clues that they're giving you around what is the type of business that they're in. And so you're thinking while you're listening to the conversation, okay, what skill sets have I got that when it's my turn to contribute, I can talk to that's going to align with the employer's business. I'm not sure that makes sense.
Yes, I understand.
But it's really thinking about, okay, what is the employer telling me about himself or herself or their business or their challenges?
So just pay attention to what they say.
Yeah.
And then those minute details.
Absolutely, yeah. And you'll find common ground.
Yes.
There is rarely a time when you're having a conversation with somebody that you can't find the common ground that will then bring you together.
Yeah. And I think that's really helpful for those really want to learn how to network, what your tips here is very helpful. Now, and then which bring me perfectly to the next question is when you see graduate apply for jobs, let's say when they send their resume or send their cover letter, do you see them make any kind of mistakes, or is there any maybe mistake in the CV or mistake in the cover letter that they should be aware of?
All right.
Yeah.
Really good question. And a CV and a cover letter is difficult. They are difficult works of art to produce and can't be rushed and need to be very carefully thought about in the context of the role and the organisation that you're applying for. So one of the big mistakes is to produce a generic CV with a generic application letter.
Yes.
Now, the aim of the game applying for roles is to ensure that your CV and application letter lands in the yes pile, not in the no pile. Because recruitment, it unfortunately is all about who do I take out of the equation as opposed to who is in the equation.
Yes.
Yeah. So you want to land in the yes pile. Therefore, your CV needs to be short, sharp, and punchy, and speak to the role and the qualities and attributes, and most importantly, the selection criteria. Address the selection criteria. If an employer asks for specifics, respond to those specifics.
So they need to respond to the bullet points of the job description.
Absolutely, yeah. Must do that. The employer doesn't put a selection criteria together because they woke up thinking, I might just use selection criteria. That's what they're looking for. So unless the applicant addresses those selection criteria, they're not going to get past first base. Really, really important. So short, sharp CV that highlights the attributes that the employer is going to be looking for. So I think the key is to think about it from the employer's perspective. What does the employer want to know about me? Not what do I want to tell the employer, but what does the employer want to know? Now remember also that if you're applying for an accountancy role, the people making the decisions are likely to be numbers people. Therefore, when you are presenting information, do it in a manner with language that resonates with the people who are reading the material.
Very good. Yeah.
So talk about outcomes, talk about deliverables in terms of numbers, in terms of measurable outputs. So rather than listing, I am a... whatever the role might be, and listing all the tasks or the responsibilities of the role, outline the outcomes. What is it that you achieved in that role in terms of measurable outcomes? Now, even if you are a treasurer with the local cricket club, you could have brought about, a 12-month period, substantial savings on their outgoings for catering.
So give them some figures.
Rather than just talk about these are the tasks. Well, but what did you achieve? And if you can articulate that in the language of the reader,
sure,
then you're going to tick some boxes. Yeah.
How about for those who do not have much experience? Then what should they say, because they don't have any record to bring to the table?
No, that is just the biggest hurdle, is being able to pull on Australian-based experience. I see some wonderful candidates coming through who have exceptional international experience, but may not have any Australian experience to draw on. And I think building the narrative around what have you done here that you can draw from is really important. Now that sounds particularly harsh, but unfortunately, if you're not in an environment, you can't relate to what that person has done and the skills that they've actually acquired in that environment. Whereas if you're sitting in Australia and somebody speaks to a particular organisation or references the types of roles and duties that an accountant will experience here in Australia. They just know what you're talking about. But sometimes it's difficult to relate to experience that's international. So whatever our students can do to build some credibility, I guess, within the Australian context is important. Now that could be anything. That could be volunteer work with a charity or a local sporting club, through their university, if they're picking up an MPA, for example, then getting involved in student-based activities, developing the social networks. It might be, we know, unfortunately, so many of our international students are ending up working in hospitality. They are driving, taxis, etc. But there are skill sets that you develop in hospitality that you're never going to develop anywhere else. Develops wonderful customer skills, marvellous customer skills. So it's about understanding, even if you think it's the most trivial experience that you've had, what have you learned from it? And what skills can you therefore turn around and present to the employer?
Because sometimes we take that skill for granted because we do that every day.
Do it every day. Yeah.
That is.
And people skills, client skills, relationship skills are critical. And if you can demonstrate, even if you haven't had a role in accounting, that you've had the opportunity to develop those, then it's really worthy of including.
Because I think one of my friends, what he did was he's an accounting graduate. He doesn't have any job. So what he did was he tried to offer to help for free people with the tax return. He just tried to do something for free. So maybe to his friends, to any small business owners who know him. And then he have some profile under his belt. He has some record. And then later on, when he goes to see the employer, he can say, hey, I've done this for this client. I have this profile. You can see the record here. It's better, isn't it, than not having anything?
Absolutely right. It's about being quite creative, I think, in what you can do, and thinking outside of Hobart as well in Tasmania. There's actually quite an opening of opportunity in other areas of the state as well. So we tend to be a little bit Hobart-centric, thinking that all the jobs are in Hobart. Well, in actual fact, there are good opportunities in the north around Launceston and on the northwest coast.
Like at Devonport?
Yes, Devonport, Burnie, even through to Smithton. And the coast is a beautiful place to live. We just need to think outside of the square sometimes.
And I think that is, unfortunately, I think that's something that university don't really encourage, and creative, think outside the box, and networking, all those skills that are very important, but I just hardly see any of the graduates have. If they have, it's very rare, and some of them are maybe they just born a bit of extrovert, but that is very small percentage. Most people they don't. And then what would be some of the approach you suggest the accounting graduates to apply for a job? Should they apply through SEEK, or should they send an email directly to the accounting firms, or should they give their CV directly to the company? What would be the best way you suggest?
All of the above, I think. So if you do look on SEEK, there are a number of opportunities, but it certainly is about ensuring that your application is tailored to the role that you're applying for. And don't be afraid to apply for roles where there's not 100% fit. So be prepared to look at things outside of what you might ideally want to secure. It's probably about having a long-term strategy of where your career trajectory is, but a short-term action plan. So you might be prepared to do different things, knowing that it is actually going to take you on that longer-term career pathway. So I think about it in that way, and what else can we think about in that respect?
So you're saying that you don't have to, let's say if the job asks for 2 years of experience, and if you only have probably 1 year, you still should apply.
I would be inclined to.
Yeah.
We have a sense that we have to be 100%
exactly
perfect for the role, and that's across cultures. You know, we all think we have to be perfect to be able to throw our hat in the ring, but in actual fact, there is no perfect. There is no perfect candidate for a role, and so it's fine to be authentic. It is fine to say, I have the skills to fulfil 80%, 90%, 70% of this role. I understand that you are looking for particular technical expertise in, I don't know, it could be advanced Excel. However, I have a base of Excel, and I am confident that I will come up to speed very quickly. And I base this on my ability to learn whatever it might have been.
Quick learner.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to be authentic, and put your hand up for something that's not 100% fit. I think that's worthwhile. So utilise Seek. Ensure that your search is quite broad. Don't narrow it right down.
Okay.
So don't just narrow it down to accounting. You know, put in finance, put in banking,
true.
Kind of open it up.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly useful. I would think about who would I like to work for. So do the research. All right, let's start with a funnel type of concept, I suppose. If we start at the top of the funnel, accounting and finance is huge.
Massive.
Huge. So think about, is there a particular sector I'm interested in? And it could be not-for-profit. You know, it could be very much about that esoteric want to be able to give back into the community. You might have done some volunteering, for example, and that's a space that you really enjoy being part of. So then researching, what are the not-for-profit organisations in Tasmania? You know, what is going on in the not-for-profit, sector? What do I need to learn about so that I'm a really strong value proposition when I put my hat in the ring for a particular role? Understanding what are the challenges of not-for-profit, for example, the financial challenges with managing NDIS. So really do that research and understand what that's all about, so you can engage in a really vigorous conversation.
So you're saying that, what you're saying, I think that's a great point, is that they don't have to necessarily apply for accounting job in accounting firms.
No.
So they can open it up to maybe, you say like maybe NDIS provider, maybe some community care.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. If you think about our economy, regardless of where you are in the world, whether the economy is strong or weak, whether we're in recession or whether we're in boom, we will always need accountants, and we need them in absolutely every business, organisation, sector that you can think of. So you're absolutely right. That firm experience within public practice is a very small dimension.
It is very small,
of the sector. So I guess it's really think about Tasmania, think about our businesses, our organisations, think about all the sectors, then do the research.
Yes.
Then taking up what do I do to acquire that vacancy. Create your own vacancy. So once you've got really clear where you want to be, then you will have a number of organisations that you want to approach. So craft your letter, craft your CV, elevate those aspects and attributes that are aligned with the sector that you're interested in. Then follow up with a phone call. Really do your research. Understand, is it the human resources manager that makes the appointments? Is it the finance manager? Is it the CFO? Really get to know that business. Application goes in, or letter of introduction with the CV goes in. Make the phone call, create the connections, understand who's out there. So you've got I guess, a myriad of avenues in which you can position yourself.
Because right now, most people, they're looking at this very tiny door.
Yes.
There's a very big door right here.
It's huge.
They don't even look into it. Wow.
No.
And then you just mentioned that calling people. Now, do you think calling is a very important skill to pick up the phone and call strangers and talk to new people? It's an important skill, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very much like the networking.
Yeah.
It's the same skill set. It truly is. It's the ability to have the courage.
It is.
To make the phone call or to step into the room and open a dialogue with somebody you don't know.
It's a lot about courage.
It's very much about courage.
So, like, for example, just how I call you, I absolutely don't know what's going to happen.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And you have to be prepared for everything that might happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because I think maybe it's a luck by any chance, but first of all, I never know how to call. I really have to learn this. This is a skill that I have crafted, and it took me about 4 years actually. I've gone through thousands of phone calls.
Yes.
Because I'm in business, so I have to call my clients. I have to convince them.
Yes.
It's all about cold call. And the more you bad at it, the better your business will be. So I think you raised a great point. Is cold call, calling people is important skill. You need to know that.
Yeah. And practice.
And practice
with people you know. Push yourself to really develop that skill set. You're right. And we were saying earlier that it's one thing to know what to do and what to say.
Yes.
It's a different thing to do it.
And that's what makes the difference between the person who made it and who did not make it.
Absolutely. Yes.
And too many people don't make it. It's sad to hear, but too many people don't make it.
That's it. And even in my role, where I'm talking with members, every day, before I pick up the phone, it's really about, okay, what time of day am I ringing? Is that likely to be a busy time? Be conscious of that. What is it that I'm ringing for? What do I want out of the conversation?
The intention must be clear.
What is the intent? Absolutely. And I will often open by introducing myself and then asking, do you have time? Would you have 5 minutes to speak to me? This is what I would like to speak to you about. And then the person can say to you, look, I'm sorry, no, I'm busy at the moment. When would be a convenient time for me to reach out? If they're not busy, they then will engage. So there are, I guess, little techniques that you can kind of drop in that keep that door open.
Absolutely.
Rather than closing the conversation.
Because I think when you say resilience, and it reminds me of a lot of people, they don't make a call or they do not network because they got this thing, it's called fear.
Oh, yes.
Fear is such a big factor. And even just thinking about it, make their palms sweat, their heart beating. And that's why I told my students this, whenever you feel fear, do it. Because fear is a funny thing, because it's very similar to excitement at the same time.
Yes, it is.
It's just how you interpret it.
That's right.
So, but most people, they interpret it in a negative way, and that's why they don't do it.
Yeah.
But whenever I'm facing a very difficult client or a very difficult call, I always write on my notes, say, lean into fear.
Yes.
It's how I live, these words I live by.
Yeah.
So if I feel scared of something, I'm like, I have to do it. Because what happened is, after that, I will not be scared anymore. But if I don't do it, I will be forever scared.
It's always going to be there, I guess, in the background. Many years ago, a manager that I had, who I respected immensely, said to me, because my background is within education and training and facilitation, and in the very early days where I was doing upfront facilitation with groups, you're right, it was terrifying. I have to put yourself in the front of 30 people, 50 people, 100 people. It's frightening. And I remember the advice that particular manager gave to me, and that was, if you fail to prepare to fail. Do your homework. Make sure that you've got your intent clear.
Yes, yes.
Really understand your material. So understand your own value proposition from a recruiting sort of perspective.
Yep.
And conquer the fear, harness the fear.
Harness the fear.
Because that's
it's an energy.
I
like that. We're on the same frequency now. I like that.
Yeah.
It's the energy. That's right. Now, let's a bit of a off the topic. There is about the employment market. So, do you see that in the next few months we might be bouncing back, or do you see it might be all the way to even July next year? This whole situation.
Oh boy, that's a really, really difficult question there. I wish I had a silver ball or a crystal ball rather, and I think most of our employers would as well. Look, it's quite a complex picture, I think, in business at the moment, and it varies across different sectors. We've actually had quite strong new member growth, so we have had an uplift of the number of associates coming in to study the CPA program.
That's great.
And
so even during the COVID,
even during COVID, which
good.
is quite interesting, and we've attempted to unpack and understand that. We think it has something to do with the fact that in times of recession, in times where business is really challenging, individuals will turn to education.
Okay.
To supplement their skill sets and to position them better within a highly competitive environment. So we think that may be a contributing factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there still is opportunity there, particularly within our small businesses and small firms.
Okay. Yep.
Because it is our public practice members, who are in that space providing business advice into their small business clients that have been most impacted through the pandemic in really being driven to provide the service that business needs to understand all the stimulus packaging and so forth that's come out. So it's difficult to know where we'll land at the end of this, if and when that actually occurs.
Yeah.
But as I said before, there will always be a need for accountants. I guess it's the volume of uptake and the volume of opportunity that shifts.
Yeah.
Good candidates, really sound, solid candidates, will always secure a role regardless of what that economy is looking like.
Yeah, and I think what you just said remind me of one of my good friend. He's an accountant, and he works here in Tasmania. And one thing about him that really stands out is his English, very strong English. And I don't know, but this is what he told me. He said, Leo, I give you a tips. If any of you still want to find a good job in accounting, make sure they brush up their English.
Yes.
English is very important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And the reverse would be exactly the same. If I pick myself up and I dropped myself in, France or Germany or China or India or wherever, there's an expectation from that country that I would make the effort to learn the language of the country.
Yeah.
And to understand the culture of the country. It's just what would be expected, I think. So,
yes.
Again, I heard something quite recently, and it really resonated with me, and it was not to necessarily develop the best possible English language skills, but to develop your best English language skills. English language does not have to be perfect.
Yes.
You certainly need to be able to convey your intent and your message quite clearly, but capitalise on all the strengths that you have coming into Tasmania or Australia, knowing that we live in a highly connected, global world, and we are dealing not just with Australian clients, we are dealing with international clients.
So true, yes.
So as an international graduate coming into a firm, for example, your value proposition may well be the fact that you are
so true.
You have this extraordinary talent of multiple languages.
Exactly.
Use that to your advantage.
Yes.
You are going to be the person who's going to be able to deal with clients from your home country, regardless of where that might be.
Yeah.
So it's not about diluting your existing skill set and your knowledge and your experience and everything that you bring. It's about supplementing that with the culture and the language of the country that you reside.
So you're saying that they need to use what they have to their advantage.
Absolutely.
And I think so far, the common theme of what we have discussed is all about selling yourself. You've got to learn how to sell yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I think, and that's as a part of, because I've been training all my students on how to speak to employers.
Yes.
And I tell them that really, when you find a job, just think of it as if you are selling yourself. Now I tell them, don't take it literally, because I always have to make sure.
That's the quirk of the Australian language, isn't it?
I have to make sure they understand. And I say, it's actually selling yourself.
Yes.
And the better you are at doing that, the more likely you get a job. But many of the times when I ask them, hey, give me 3 reasons why I should hire you, they don't know how to say.
No.
They're always very generic, like, I'm hardworking, I'm smart. It's just like everyone can say that. What is something unique about you that the guy down the road don't have it?
Yeah.
So I always tell them this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is in the context of the role that they're wishing to secure. So you may say to me, tell me three reasons why I would employ you. Now, if you're a CFO from a large manufacturing business, my top 3 is going to be very different.
True.
To that which, if you were a partner in a public practice firm, my top 3 value proposition points are going to be different.
Yeah.
So again, it's being very clever about how you are packaging your value proposition.
Yes. And then that's why it's important that they really have to read the job description carefully. Because what happened is they just a lot of them, they just apply like it's just like a spamming someone with application, And there's this guy, I don't know whether he's bragging or he's complaining, but he told me he'd been applying for 500 jobs within the past 1 year, and he hardly have anything back. And I'm saying, then you got to question yourself. It's not about the employer. If you apply for 500 jobs and none of them come back to you, something's wrong with you. Don't blame the economy. Don't blame the employer. No. It's you're the problem.
And it's probably fairly clear in either the application letter and or the CV. If it's the same application letter going to 500 employers, that's potentially why he finds himself in the place. Invest in yourself, I think, is key. Set yourself up with the greatest chance of success. So it's again that whole marketing package. It's what you present to the employer on paper. That is the initial picture of you. And then when you are successful in being shortlisted and coming to the interview, then whatever you've presented in that CV and application needs to be aligned with who you are. So it's
you still have to tell the truth.
Oh yeah, you have to be authentic. There's no doubt about that. That's true. But again, don't have somebody else write your CV in a language that doesn't represent you.
Is that even me?
Because then you're going to front up to the interview with a completely different vernacular, and so the two don't align.
That's so true.
So think of the whole package and how it all integrates to express your value proposition.
Yep. And I think which bring me probably to the last 2 questions is that a lot of our clients, they are on visa conditions. So some of them on students, some of them on graduate. Many of them haven't got the permanent residency yet. And one of the common feedback they have from the employees, they cannot hire them because of their visa.
That's right.
Now, what would you give? What sort of advice would you give to these people when they hear that feedback? Because it's been quite common feedback now.
Yes.
I like to hire you, but it's your visa. It's really sad, but it's the case happening now. What would you
It is.
recommend?
So as a general rule, public sector roles will require permanent residency.
Okay.
I think understanding that from the outset is really important, because it will then negate a lot of disappointment. It is the very first thing. So
Why is it like that though? Is there any is there any specific reason? Because these guys, they have full working rights as well. And some of them, they have up to 2 years of full working rights. So why do you think they set it in such a way?
It's simply around the requirements of that particular sector of the industry. There are some exceptions, and it does vary between the different levels of government. I think, again, it's about researching and understanding what are the requirements of that particular organisation or sector or agency that you're looking at. So do the research and really understand what are the potential hurdles that are around your visa, and then ensure that you are applying for roles where that's not going to be problematic, first and foremost. If you do apply and that response is received, then by all means respectfully ask, what do you require?
True.
So it's really about, and then continuing that dialogue rather than going, oh, okay, and closing it down.
Most people do that.
They go, oh, and walk away.
Wow, so
Continue
right. Yes.
the dialogues.
Yeah.
And it might be something along the lines of, oh, I understand. I didn't appreciate that was going to be a barrier to me securing this particular role. Had I a permanent residency, or had I a particular visa or otherwise, would that have improved my opportunity, or would that have improved my chances of securing the role? And they probably will say, look, yes, you actually were able to address these criteria. Or they may say, well, in addition to that, we really were looking for somebody with advanced Excel skills.
Yes.
Continue the conversation through.
Yep.
And ask the employer, what can I be doing to position myself more favourably should a role come available again with your organisation?
So rather than just give up immediately, stick to that, get as much information as you can.
Absolutely.
And so that you can use it for future.
Yes.
But most people don't do that.
No, they don't.
That is the pro.
They don't.
Oh my God, you spot on. And I think you said a good point in a way that sometimes the employer might say it's because of your visa, but deep down it might not be the reason.
Yes.
It's very convenient to say.
It is very convenient.
Oh, it's your visa, man. Look,
that's right.
Everyone can say that.
Yeah.
But this is when the student got thrown off guard, and there's like they got hurt, and the emotion taking over.
Of course, because nobody likes rejection. It doesn't matter who you are, what role you're in, and how senior you might be. None of us like rejection.
Absolutely.
But it is a character strength to be able to take that and say, okay, how can I learn from this, and be prepared to continue the conversation.
Yes.
You might be surprised where that takes you.
That's so true.
And I do know of examples where that has occurred. The conversation has continued, and the person has ended up with a role with that organisation down the track, because they've taken the time to better understand what it is that the employer is looking for. And maintain contact. Let's say you have that conversation, that it truly is about a visa issue. You've addressed that, then go back to the employer, whether it's a phone call or whether it's another letter, to say, you may recall 6 months ago I applied for the graduate role X. I now have my permanent residency, which is fantastic. Would you be open to a conversation of future employment opportunities?
Yeah.
Keep once you've actually broken, I guess, that initial contact, then respectfully maintain that.
It's a follow up, isn't it? You have to follow up. And I told my student all the time is most of your jobs will come in when you follow up. It's not the first time you talk. It's probably going to be the fifth, the sixth, the seventh time when you follow up. We should leave it probably to the last questions here, Gina. I heard on statistics, I'm not sure if this is correct, but they say that 80% of all the jobs are not advertised online. Most of them, only 20% or even less are on Seek or Indeed. Do you agree with this?
Yes.
Is this correct?
Yes, it is.
Just like that.
Yes.
Because most of people, they depend on Seek. But I tell them, no, that's not everything out there.
It is not everything.
Yeah.
No, it is not everything. And that's why it's quite important to be proactive in managing your own destiny. Don't sit and wait for an opportunity to appear on Seek.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Manage your own future pathway. Understand where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And that is about actually getting up and doing something about it, as opposed to waiting and for that opportunity to come to you. So you're quite right. Seek is a terrific go-to place, without question. However, it is absolutely worth being very aware that many opportunities come from word of mouth.
Absolutely. I mean, if I hire someone today, I'm not going to go to Seek. I'm like, hey, you know anyone?
Absolutely. And because the network is so strong in Tasmania, that happens all the time.
Yes.
All the time. So the conversation will go, I will pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Leo, I'm looking for somebody to do some data entry work for me, or look, I've got an assistant accountant role coming up. I don't want to go out to market because I'm inevitably going to be flooded with applications. Who do you know? Well, actually, I met a young student at a function I went to, or I happened to be talking to, and that's the way it goes. Yes.
So I think this is something that they should be aware of, and so that they can make the right move when it comes to employment. Would you have any last advice for them before we finish? For these graduates who is maybe very desperate now, who's been jobless now, and maybe they need some encouragement. Do you have any advice for them just to give it to the students?
Again, I really wish I had a silver bullet to say this is what you need to do. Fundamentally, have faith in yourself. I have an enormous amount of respect for students who leave their own country, wherever that may be. They know nobody in Australia. They may not even know where Tasmania is, and end up here completely on their own. They forge their own pathway and forget what they've actually achieved through that. So drawing on all that phenomenal courage and resilience and talent to be able to do that, don't forget that you've already achieved far more than most of the population of Australia, because we're not necessarily picking ourselves up and taking that risk and going elsewhere. So have faith in yourself, because you've already achieved far more than so many people around you. Understand what and I keep calling it your value proposition. Really understand what your talents are, what your strengths are, and how you can portray that. Join the community. Get into the community.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter whether you're volunteering at a charity. It doesn't matter whether you're involved in a sporting club. You might want to, start some study, whether that's TAFE or whether that's your CPA program or whether it's a short course at university. Get involved with the community that you're going into.
Yes.
And have people around you that give you the strength and
positive
confidence, positive people around you. And I know that's not necessarily the answer that students might be looking for, but it's a combination of so many different things. But don't forget what it is that you've achieved to get here.
And I totally relate, because for many migrants, it's a very hard journey. Even for me, it's a very hard journey to be where I am today. I remember when I was applying for jobs in Tasmania, people say no to me all the time. I don't even have a proper visa. I lost my visa 3 times. So I lost my visa 3 times. I was on AAT. I'm not sure you know it. AAT is when you fail your visa, you want to appeal for the decision. So I was on AAT, so I was on bridging visa. Don't even have a proper visa. Everywhere I go, people say no to me, and I made it clear to myself that I will not stop until I get it. And I think it's because of that mindset, and I keep pushing, and then before I know it, I have 1, 2, 3, quite a lot of offers at the same. When it comes in, it comes in a flood. It just, I don't know how it works, but when it comes in, it just comes in a flood. And then now I can choose. It's a good position to be in, but if I were giving up, in which most people would have, because 3 times failing visa is quite tough.
So disheartening. And look what you're doing now.
So I really relate to what the international are going through, and I really appreciate your advice, because coming from someone who's a local, telling this, it's really give us the perspective from another side, because we usually be comfortable from our end, but we hardly see from your end. So it's from the local, so it's really helpful.
Great. And don't forget that we have as much to learn from our international students coming into the state as students do from those who are local. We can learn so much. And again, it's about not forgetting the value that you can bring, but being able to articulate that in a manner that's a really strong proposition for a future employer.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time today, Gina.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.